Namaskar students. Today we are going to continue with the communication skills chapter of employability skills. As in the last video, I have told you about communication barrier. A communication barrier is anything that prevent us from receiving and understanding the message others use to convey their information, ideas, and thoughts. And moreover, I have told you about types of barriers to effective communication. And in that, physical barrier, language barrier, cultural barrier, gender barrier, attitudinal barrier, perceptual barrier, and emotional barrier was there. In today's class, we will be learning how to handle with these barriers of communication. There are following practices, practical ideas for dealing with attitudinal barrier to communication so that all our exchange as a small business owner or a part of a team in an office are as productive as they can be. First point in it is engage in face to face interaction. Whenever possible, we need to turn our face towards the person who is speaking. Or being an owner or a part of team in an office, whenever you have learned these by experiences, text messages, even through email, it can be interpreted if the person is not having facial expression, tone, and inflection. So timely communication is of great importance, and people having no choice, they can send text or email, but it need a facial interaction and they need to see towards the other person so that they may understood. Just like when two students are talking or two friends are talking, they need to turn their face around and they may speak so that better understanding of communication will be there. Next is reduce or eliminate distractions around you. Just like if any teacher is teaching in the class and you people are talking, then the teacher distract and she asks you to be quiet. Similarly, when there is effective communication and noise from the other people or office machine is coming, then it may sink your pleasant interaction. So, and you need to sit in the quiet area, in the silent area, but sometime if too much of quiet is there, it can be distracting. It can be meaning that people are eavesdropping on your conversation, something you want to avoid. The walls have ears also, so it may move your conversation to another part of building or to go outdoor. So you need to sit in a proper area whenever you are doing conversation. Next is hone your active listening skill. Active listening involves giving the other person time to explore their thoughts, feelings they should have, and it should be given adequate time to speak others. It not only means focusing fully on the speaker but also actively showing verbal and non-verbal sign of listening. The University of Many suggests a 5-step process to this alert and engaged listening style. In it, acknowledge the other person's idea, thought, or feeling. Paraphrase the other person's word to ensure the understanding. As the teachers are asking you after completing the chapter that have you understood or not. Ask questions without judging, summarizing, and clarifying what you have here. And if it is being asked to give your opinion, then you need to give your opinion also. Organize your thought. You don't have write notes, but if you're doing so, it helps you to organize what you have said and how you want to said it. Start writing. Many communication go haywire because the purpose is hazy in the mind of sender. And if it is hazy, in the mind of sender, it might be complete blur to the recipient. Next, try to assess the needs of receiver. It is the another saying of know the audience. Whenever we are making a presentation, then also it is being asked that know your audience and then just make it. It will be giving you a better experience and practice. Although it is not an easy objective, but through an if you are an employer, you can look the bright side of it. By knowing your audience, you can avoid the attitudinal variables such as age, culture, education, experience, gender, and race. And others' lifestyle and upbringing may include you. By this, you can develop an empathic stance, and if possible, you can tailor your message accordingly. Next is soften your tone and language. Always it is being asked they speak in a soft voice. If you are always speaking loudly and harshly, then no people will understand you and people won't like to talk you. So being a professional, a person need to be courteous and speak in a softened voice on every interaction. By this, you can defeat attitudinal behavior and it can help immensely to maintain a gentle and reassuring tone and use simple, non confrontational language. Keeping sentences short and direct and can also possible to avoid misunderstanding. Next is encourage feedback. If you are getting some good message or if you see good images on WhatsApp, Facebook or Insta, you are giving your feedback to your friends, liking or disliking it. So if the other guy giving you feedback, it may encourage you, it may motivate you, it may comes up and discusses you behind your back. So now it might be a good time to remember the advice about how the receiver also bear responsibility for whether a two-way exchange is success or a failure. All you can do is ask that he understood what you had said, and if he says any question, then you may clarify you. Next, I have described it some common barriers to effective communication which we must be avoided. In it, first is second guessing the sender. Sometimes we become impatient with the speaker and are in hurry to finish the sentence for the speaker. It takes away from the speaker an opportunity to complete what was being said. So, at times, we could be completely off the mark while finishing off the spoken part and created antagonism in the speakers. We have thus defeated how first principle of seeking first to understand. Then next is stereotyping. Stereotyping means sticking on the some words. Sometime if we know something, then we become stereotypes that it is said by this, our mind is set for that thing. So once our mental sets are created, all our transactions are affected by these sets, preventing us from effective listening. Next is halo effect. This is also a kind of stereotyping only. Based on a single characteristics, we make up our mind usually positively about the other person. So we may like someone mannerism or passion while speaking and get so impressed that are unable to see any negative in this person. Next in the same is not listening as a status or gender issue. This can happen if you are having ego with someone else and you don't want to listen. As I have told you about studies that man speaks less than a woman. Similarly, man listen much less than women too also. So in those position when listen less to those who are lower in hierarchy. How well do we listen to our children or subordinate? If a woman employee is speaking, the man colleagues has to be attentive, and would be uh, they would be attentive, and they can give their suggestion later. In the addition of this, some are more barriers which we can avoid are daydreaming, private planning, detouring, fetting, and exhaustion. Typically, mannerism shows if we are continuously saying no, I know, well, or marking some gesticulation, while talking also act as an barrier, and it can be observed by other ones, and by the feedback we can avoid it. Next is handling misunderstanding. Misunderstanding is a failure to understand something or someone correctly. It can also be a disagreement or quarrel. Basically, it is an misconception or illusion or distortion of the reality. It can be a false impression that is created in our mind. Winston gives a couple points on how to avoid mishandling or miscommunication. In it, we should recognize the passive hearing and active listening are not same. In passive hearing, we need to only hear without respond, but in active listening, we need to respond. Listen with our eyes and ears and gut. We need to be totally active and attentive while we are listening. Then take time to understand as you try to be understood, because understanding takes time if a speaker is speaking any point. Be aware of your personal perceptual filter. Causes of miscommunication and misunderstanding. The first step in fixing miscommunication is understanding where things goes wrong. For it, you can play a game like something you are speaking first students uh, mind, and then it is being passed on throughout the class, and when it comes to the conclusion to the end student, it is something else. The things get changed. So this is the misunderstanding only. Or two students can sit back to back, and one student is speaking and other one is making a drawing based on that, and if it is not up to the mark as the other one has spoken, then it can create, it's a kind of misunderstanding only. So these misunderstanding game help drive creative communication. You can find out creative ways to communicate despite the barrier build problem solving skill. So no communication work exactly the same, and creativity is required to make sure effective communication happens each time. Now we are going to learn about emotional intelligence. How well you read others. For this, I have planned an activity. A questionnaire is given following following, and a picture is given for each question. You need to read the picture what kind of emotion it is depicting, and you need to then choose any one option from the given options and write all these answers to be discussed in the next video. Thank you.